There's a right-wing war on the cities. Did you know that? There's a right-wing war against the cities. Like, for instance, Campbell County, for instance. Did you know that Newport, Bellevue, and Dayton pay most of the county taxes in Campbell County? And yet, they get hardly any of the county services. Hardly any of the expenditures are spent in Newport, Bellevue, and Dayton. They're mostly spent out in the right-wing suburbs. So there really has been a war on the cities. And in the past recent years, you know, every decade, every passing a cycle, it seems like the right-wingers roll out the heavy artillery. Even more than they did last time. So it really is a war against the cities. And it's a pattern that's repeated nationwide. The cities are paying most of the taxes, but wealthy exurbs are getting most of the benefits, even though they don't pay as much tax dollars. And not only that, but cities are underrepresented in legislatures and in Congress and even in the Electoral College because the 2000 census was rigged against the cities. I didn't even receive a census form in 2000. So I wasn't counted in the 2000 census. This is a pattern that's repeated in city areas all over America. And this morning it was repeated again because this morning there was some company that was making a whole bunch of noise outside, drilling a hole in the sidewalk with a jackhammer. And now I can understand if this was something that had to be done, but this just happens so much. There's not really any reason why it needs to be done as much as it is, because this happens all the time. I went out there this morning, and some company that I'd never heard of before had their truck blocking the alley, literally blocking the entire width of the alley next to the building. And like about 50 feet down, they had dug a hole in the sidewalk, and they were using like jackhammers and really loud equipment to do it. And they had a machine across the street from that was making a bunch of noise, going constant. It was just constant. And they had like a hose running from the machine to where the hole was across the street. It was blocking the street, this big orange hose. And this has happened before. Like, it's mostly with construction noise. Like a few months ago, like there was that house, a couple of houses away that they were renovating. There's some company was renovating it and remodeling it. And this was a company that was based like out in Alexandria. They were coming into Bellevue just to make noise. They didn't need to because they, like every part, like they were doing something with the roof. The roof and the siding and the walls or something. Every board that they were doing, instead of preparing it out in Alexandria, where it wouldn't create as much of a disturbance. There's more open land. They're not really close enough to other houses and stuff. They've probably got like a big field. Probably have like a whole city block just to themselves out that way, where they wouldn't disturb anybody. And they could have cut the boards down there with their power tools. They use like electric saws, and these are like the loudest electric saws I've ever heard. And they were using these power tools to cut up the boards. They could have done that out in Alexandria. It wouldn't have disturbed anybody because if they did it out in the field or something. Instead, they take all their wood and equipment down to Bellevue and do it here, where there's houses all around and apartment buildings and businesses all around. And they made a bunch of noise, and this went on for too long, and I yelled at them out the window to keep it down, and it said it only got worse. And there's some woman who lives a couple houses away. She yelled at them too, and it got worse. Then when that happened, and then they didn't care about the neighborhood's quality of life. Do you think something like this would be tolerated if they created that much noise in like a wealthy suburb? No, of course it wouldn't be tolerated. Even if the closest house was a half a mile away, it wouldn't be tolerated. But of course it gets tolerated here. And then, of course, about 5 years ago, of course, there was the big pile driver. Remember that? Now, if you lived in Bellevue about 5 or 6 years ago, you probably remember the winter of the pile driver. If you live anywhere in the northern half of Bellevue at the time, I think you know what I'm talking about. There was this, and a lot of that was the city's fault, because even the cities have a war against the cities. See, the city allowed this to happen. The city government allowed this to happen. So the cities themselves are carrying out a war against the cities. And see, and it's a never-ending battle. So that's how it works these days. Right now, I'm going to check the latest news. So let's see if it lets me check the news. And part of the problem here, I made the computer run a little bit faster because it said because I didn't know that there was a button that said best appearance or best performance. And nobody told me about this until just a few days ago, so I finally found that. So that was covered up. For 4 years I've had this computer. I've been running best appearance when I should have been running best performance. So now my computer's a lot faster than it's been in several years. But don't expect that to last for very long, because usually every time I find a way to speed up the computer, something always happens to slow it back down again. So somebody's dumping spyware on it. So, alright, not really any news here. So, oh wow, UN malls internet regulation options. That ought to be interesting. Oh man, UN. Like I'm gonna follow. Okay, now listen to how fascist this is. It says, the United Nations is considering whether to set up an intergovernmental working group to harmonize global efforts by policymakers to regulate the internet. And I'm not talking about the kind of stuff that I've been trying to stop all the harassment and stuff that was going on a few years ago. They're talking about regulating content and censorship here, and the UN is trying to get countries to censor the internet, and its reaction to WikiLeaks. That's ridiculous. The UN wants to censor the internet because they're mad at WikiLeaks. so that's fascist. So that's now this, of course, is the same UN that supported a right-wing coup in Honduras. So that shows you what the UN has come to lately. So yeah, the UN's not gonna control what I say. I'm not gonna let you really think I'm gonna let the UN control what I say? So anyway, that's the latest.
News.